5th. We don't got emails from the. But this time, I invite to have a one.
Good evening. You have my presentation? You have number 3? Yes. Go ahead. There we go. Okay, so just very basic. These are kind of the factors that we look at when we're preparing our budget. Obviously, we look at our operations. What are the things that we need operationally to be ready for, any emergency? Staff well-being, that's become a big thing in the center. We look at the mental health of staff, the longer they've been there, the burnout rates, and how calls are impacting them. On a side note, I did send a video today to each of you to take a look at. It's on mental health. It was a really nice video done by Department of Homeland Security. So, just sometime when you have a free 20 minutes, just take a look at it. And it kind of gives you an idea of what it's like to work in this arena and deal with these kind of calls and how it does impact you, years on end of dealing with the trauma. We look at compliance with state mandates. This is becoming big. We just got new standards. Couple of the things that we'll talk about today are the new psychological exams that we need to implement. We already do drug testing, we do fingerprinting, but we have to also implement physicals, hearing tests. So those are things that cost money. So they're, and they're mandates. So those are things that will be new additions to the budget. And then we look at, investments. The communication system is probably our biggest investment. And looking at, what the needs are of that, we're looking at a system that's now almost 14 years old. So we do use grant revenue to offset maintenance costs, but the system is aging. So we have to look at that infrastructure and try to balance, the needs of the problems that arise and how we can prioritize managing that system and maintaining that system.
Does it have a useful life?
So, that's been asked. That's kind of a tough question because the way it's built today, there's a lot of software updates. So from an infrastructure perspective, the core is updated, biannually. It's a lot of software. So that's all, updated. And those are easier repairs per se. But then we look at ancillary things like antennas and the equipment in the shelters, the generators, the UPS units. We're starting to see those fail. And those can be costly. So, and they're all the same age because it was all built at the same time. So it's kind of like, when one fails that you got to start preparing for others. So useful life of some equipment is probably 10 to 15 years. Others, probably 20-ish. So it just depends on what piece and parts you're talking about. This is probably the biggest addition, I think, to our budget this year. And I'll be honest, I've been trying to hold off on this. We generally replace chairs every 3 years. We're breaching 4.5 right now. I threw some pictures in simply because it's a 20,000 may not sound like a lot, but to me, it was kind of a big hit for our budget. And they're expensive chairs because they're set in 24/7. So they meet all the ergonomic requirements and they meet all of the, a couple of them we have to purchase for bigger people. So, they're very heavy duty. These chairs weigh probably 20 pounds if I'm, roughly. And they are probably $2,500 a chair. But you're also talking about something that's used 24/7. There's always somebody sitting in them. So we try hard to take care of them and maintain them. But every chair in the center are starting to deteriorate. So we really can't push that off any longer. Go ahead. So grant revenues, as of right now, we're anticipating probably between 550 and maybe 700 in our SEEK. We haven't gotten that award yet. But we actually did just get, since I did this, we did just get the NG 911 grant, which is 1.5 million. And then we are applying for the EZNet grant, which is about 650,000. All of our grants are very specific. So they're really targeted towards specific projects. So you don't have a lot of leeway to use them for other things. The state's pretty creative in how they do those grants. So we do use the SEAT grant to offset revenue, which is helpful because our communications system revenue is like 550,000 a year. We do generally get enough grant money to cover that. But then there are, other things on top of it that we don't have grant funding for that end up being, just normal everyday budget expenses. And then obviously we look at, trying as much as we can to reduce the burden on our budget. And as I get awards, I generally do try to get those out so that you are aware of what's coming. And then Lynn and I work together to update the budget. Go ahead. Building maintenance, I think, based on our conversation during our budget, they're gonna add some money to our maintenance line, and that's kind of for those ancillary things that we talked about. One thing, and this just occurred today, we had our PM on our UPS at the primary center. And that is, the UPS unit itself, I think, is 7 years old. I take that back, it might be 10. The batteries need to be replaced. They're over 5 years old. That's $12,000. And those are things that surface that you just don't, you don't necessarily know or you can't plan for because until these things surface, they kind of hit you.
Well, what's the lifespan of a battery?
So those batteries, the UPS batteries, they are 5 years.
So you should be able to plan for that. You just said it's a 5-year lifespan. They're coming to an end. You know that when you buy the next round, it's another 5 years budget for. Those aren't things you can't plan for.
So, but we don't always know that. So I don't necessarily know when they're put in. I might not always be part of that.
Well, why not?
Because we have maintenance team that deals with that too. And there's so many different UPS units.
Is that through a vendor?
It is, it's through Eaton. So we just replaced our contract with Eaton and he came to do the PM. And he was kind of behind on that too, so.
They don't do reports and give us when they replace.
They do, and I sent that to Tom on today because we kind of go through those together.
Is the question, maybe you don't have the luxury to have some money in your budget for those kind of things that are unexpected? I'm not talking about hundreds and hundreds of.
No, we generally don't we don't budget for extra stuff. We really just budget for what we know.
So when things go wrong.
Honestly, I try to make it work. I try to move money around and try to cut other things where I possibly can. And sometimes, like, for example, when they say, the batteries or like we have a couple of antennas right now they're seeing degradation, which means they're still functioning, but you should look at replacing them. So we might say, okay, well, we're going to wait a year on that because we just don't have the funds right now. So those are things that we try to plan ahead for and try to look at. Yeah, go ahead. No, yeah, go ahead. So that one, we kind of just touched on this. So this is some of the updates that we talked about from the mandates from the state, the psychiatric tests and the hearing tests. And I'm working with a company, I forget what state they're from, on the psychiatric tests. I got this from some of my colleagues who are already managing these. And hearing tests, I'm working on trying to find a physician that will cover these areas for our next set of hires. I think locally there are now, and I think maybe Dr. Duckett is another physician that can handle these areas for us. We already do the drug testing. We have a local site that does that, and the physicals will be part of the hearing test. But those will be, and they're not significant costs, but there'll be a little bit of an added cost that we didn't have in the past. We also are seeing a little bit of an increase in the basic dispatch training. And I think it's $300 for them to attend, but it's a 45-minute drive every day. So, we have costs associated with that. And that's not something that we really can host. So, we have to absorb those costs. Anytime we can host, I'll tell you, we really try hard to host all of our trainings. Actually, today we hosted the New York State's Film and Users Group. BOCES allowed us a conference room there, and that saves us on travel. So anywhere we can host, I do to save us on travel.
What's your vacancies now?
Oh, so we just hired 3, so we've still got 3 vacancies.
And entry-level dispatchers.
Yeah, so we have 2 dispatcher and 1 supervisor vacancy right now.
Okay.
And we will probably do another round of interviews mid-December and try to start another training class in January. Training costs, so I just base these on history. If you remember last year, we cut that budget a little bit and then I had to come back and ask for money. So I just based on the trend of the last 4 years, that's where this budget comes from. And honestly, training is huge. It's a risk management for us. It's protection, so that we can say that, they've been trained and we do continuous training. This year we did a 8-hour course on domestic violence. And we do try to look at where our high priority calls are and where our high volume calls are and focus on that on an annual basis. I think next year we're looking at doing the initial Denise Amber Lee training because we've got, I think, 8 or 9 newer staff that never took that. And there's a lot to take away from that training from a liability perspective. And it kind of really gives them a good overview of what happens if you make a mistake and why it's important to really be conscious of everything you're doing. Go ahead. So this is just kind of a snapshot of the major changes. The chairs obviously are the most significant. The tower site maintenance, personnel testing, and then training. And training's probably not really up a lot. It's really just looking at, if I compared it to last year when the initial budget was 5,000 and then we added money throughout the year. So probably not necessarily an increase. It's really just keeping it where it needs to be. Yeah.
Your training probably fluctuates do you have a sense of what the turnover rate is? I would imagine the more new staff you have, the more the training costed.
Well, no, because all the employees are required to do 21 hours a year of in-service training. So that's where our training costs come from.
Okay, so that's not including all the onboarding costs.
It's both. Yep, includes. Yep. So, and we do a lot of online training too to save. We do subscribe to the public safety group. So that's like $1,000 a year, but that gives us probably 6 to 8 hours per employee a year. So it helps absorb some of those costs because training is not cheap.
Mm-hmm.
Denise, could you just help me understand the one slide where you said we will update as awards are received?
Yes.
Changed approach ensures we will avoid needing funds from fund balance or what's the significance of?
So what that is, thank you for bringing that up. So if you remember 2 months ago when we were looking at the cameras. So how Lynn and I have talked about moving forward with the budget is making sure that whatever we budget for the grant award, that amount of expenses is in the budget. So it's because we can't just assume that all of that grant award can offset operational expenses that are already in our budget. So for example, we know that 550,000 of the new SEEK award will offset the maintenance costs that are in there for 550,000. So if that award comes in at 750, then we'll increase the.
So it won't just be sitting in a revenue account. It will have an expense against it.
That's correct.
Okay.
And we won't end up short changing ourselves in the end where, we budgeted for 750 because that's what we thought it would be, but we didn't increase our expense line as well.
Okay.
So that I don't have to come back and say, hey, we need money out of fund balance or whatever. We have the money.
Denise, if you would,
Mhm.
I kind of understand the answers to these, but I don't know if everybody does.
Sure.
When we hire a dispatcher and we bring them through the minimal training that has,
Mhm.
where they actually come to you on the floor. How long does it take before that person, and I know there's 2 different jobs there, before they're actually capable of working on their own?
So it's probably about a year process for them to work in at least one dispatch position.
And you have the fire side, you have the
Yep.
sheriff side, and then you have what they call call takers, correct?
So we break it up in fire, law, and call taker. So when a new employee begins, they go through roughly 3 to 4 weeks of classroom training. Then we do some practical training, which that was all done in the backup center. So now we've kind of had to regroup on how we're training. So they'll do some practical training in the center now with staff. Then they do another 2 weeks of the basic dispatch course, which is held in Ontario County. So now you're talking probably you're at, I don't know, 6, 8 weeks. Then they'll come in and they'll work with a call taker, sort of a CTO, for probably 6 to 8 weeks of call taking, and they'll get cleared on call taking. Once they're cleared on call taking, we will put them in a schedule just for a short period of time to kind of just work through call taking and, learn the process and learn what it's like to be in a schedule. And then we'll pull them again and they'll go through one of the disciplines, either Auburn Police, County Law, or Fire. And that, depending on which discipline they're on, Fire's you're probably talking 3 months. County Law, APD, maybe a month and a half. They don't generally take as long. And then once they're done with one of the law, we'll have them do the second law, because that's really only learning kind of the nuances between the two law agencies. So that might only take a couple of weeks. But when all is said and done, for them to get trained on all 3 positions, you're probably talking 1.5 years.
So I guess, and here's the point that I want to drive home is that, we've got, 1.5 years worth of training. Obviously, there's costs involved in getting somebody trained up to this. So, for us to be able to retain these folks, and be very conscious of, burnout. I've sat in, the dispatch center, multiple times, and it's a job I know I cannot do. But, it takes a special person, and if we're not, doing our utmost to retain these people, obviously, pay is one thing, but the healthcare that, we're having to incur, the state's putting, the mandates with the physicals and the hearing and all that. I just think that, the money that we put into one of these people, just one person is a big expense. And, again, I think we should be doing everything we can to retain these people, just to, put an hour, 1.5 years into somebody and have them quit 3 days later because, they can't, it's something that they didn't realize they were getting themselves into.
Yeah, and with new people, because we also do emergency medical dispatch, so that's another $400 for each person in the training process. But, one of the things we've learned is we don't all learn the same. We don't all learn from the same people the same way. So when someone's struggling, generally, we'll transition them to somebody else just to see, because trainers train differently too. So sometimes I might learn better from you than I would from you, just because of how my brain is wired. So, we do try all of those different angles to make sure that we're not missing something with someone and giving them every opportunity that we can. Because, a lot of times people quit a job to come, and so you really want to make sure that you're doing the best that you can to give them every opportunity.
Anyone else for questions?
Do you have, other numbers in the budget, Jonathan, to cover is there new furniture going into the backup or?
She's made a request for it.
Okay,
The 20,000 for the chairs is requested. That's for the primary center.
Right.
And the backup.
Right.
There is conversation that there will be some furniture within the, new backup area. However, those plans have not been fully even discussed or
Okay.
found out yet. We're not to that part of the project stage.
gotcha, thank you.
We're still getting stuff out and getting things going.
It's true, though, that we have the computers that are going to be used in the backup center, but they haven't been outfitted by Motorola. Is that kind of where we spent significant amount on those computers too?
The items, the
True.
workstations, my understanding is the workstations that are in the backup center will be the workstations we use. The current desks that are in the backup center will most likely not be the current desks. If that makes sense.
But weren't there some laptop computers that we?
Refer to the laptops.
Yes, didn't,
Those won't be what we're using for primary work centers. And if I'm mistaken,
But
it's correct.
they're what we use now before the backup center is fully equipped?
I'll let
that-
Nancy answer that.
So those are what we're working toward to use now, yeah. So we're still working on getting those set up. There's equipment associated with those that we're still waiting on.
Yep.
And there's equipment associated with those that has to be placed in the backup center. So that's something that Tom Bond will work with the vendor on, but those are not up and running yet.
We have them and we purchased them,
have-
but they're not fully equipped and they're not stationed anywhere, either Owasco Fire Department or Auburn Fire Department, which would the plan be.
They're not in service, but
They're
they're
not
in
in
the process of getting in service.
Got it.
Has the
Okay.
software been installed?
It has.
It has.
Yes, yep.
Okay.
Yep. So we're just waiting on some equipment that just still has not arrived.
Okay.
Yeah. And then as far as you asked about the furniture, that's part of the budget for the backup center.
Okay. So, but that's in this budget,
So
or you're just coming up, you're just figuring that out, or?
So the 1.2 million that was approved by this body for that move, that's part of that money.
Oh,
Data center and your equipment. Is that,
Right, that's included in the resolution
If
that,
you're asking the question about the 26 budget, there is not monies included for the backup center in the 26 budget. Those were taken from a resolution.
Already taken.
In August, and that's
Right.
the monies that are being used for the backup center at this time.
so these laptops, if they're not, like, are we close to getting the backup center fortified, or?
The, right now for the laptops, my understanding is we're waiting on equipment, a proxy server is part of that. 'Cause
I guess I just meant like the entire backup at the
The entire
Auburn
backup
Fire, like,
location.
are we there? Are we getting close? I'm just wondering, because by the time we get that fortified here,
For early, I believe early 26 would be a date.
right, so I guess I'm like, have we returned them if we don't need them?
Well, some of the thought process has also been, I don't think we can return them unfortunately, but the thought process has been if they'll serve the workstations in the backup right now are for 5 workstations. And if it was a long-term shutdown of the night primary center, that those 2 laptops could be up and firing to give us 7 workstations.
Right,
as
we
well.
need them,
So
right.
They do have a purpose, and they also serve a purpose in the field for events, or if we have large events in the callability.
Okay,
and I guess to piggyback off your question, the equipment in the county office building that was concerned about being compromised, that seems to be eligible to be moved and to be used
The plan is to move all that equipment to Auburn Fire.
and have it work.
Correct.
Okay.
And part of the things, you may not be aware about the laptops. We didn't purchase the laptops from Motorola. We just tried to save money where we could. So Tom Bond got his specs from Motorola about what was required for those computers to have their software. So the computers weren't the expensive part, it was the software.
right, okay.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Judy and then Kevin. I'll continue with buildings and grounds.
Okay, I put together, you guys got my package that we put together. I just wanted to kind of fill everyone in on, what buildings and grounds is and what we do. Here we go. Got our list of our employees, our infrastructure for labor listed there. I think we got pretty good coverage. I don't see where we need to add anybody or remove anybody. We seem to be just right now. Building wise, we're doing them all. The courthouse, HPO, Hardenberg, COB, we're in there every day. Just checking to make sure nothing bad is going on inside the building. We have the heat on, so we don't freeze any pipes and destroy things. But we do have a checklist just inside the building. So somebody's going in every day, make sure that everything inside it is good and safe and secure. So that seems to be working. We'll continue that until we end up doing something with that. Yeah, the rest of them, the COV, mental health, PSB, and then 63 Genesee, which we don't own, but we do a lot of work there, with the staff that we have. So trying to accommodate them as best as we can. Kind of a tight spot and trying to make them feel good and, and be able to be productive in their work. But it is a difficult building. There's always something wrong and we have a difficult landlord, but, we're getting by. They were working on it still today. I'm not sure if they're there yet. I myself lowered the boiler temperature 20 degrees yesterday, and I don't think it was enough, so they were tweaking it some more today. It's a weird line though. I don't want to keep doing that because then, I mean, we could end up with further problems and I don't want.
Landlord's problem.
Right, yeah. So we'll stay on him. I don't know, you guys know that we got maintenance crews, but I don't know how much you know about what they do, so I kind of did all the activities that they do. Snow removal, plowing, salting. We take care of the lawns in the summer months. And heating, plumbing, air conditioning, electrical, HVAC, which that's a repeat, I just noticed. Painting, moving, place, people are always relocating to different places, so we do a lot of moving. We got the youth employment and training kids in the mobile work crew kids, which are helpful to us and good for those kids too, because starting place and they learn how to work and you gotta be here every day and you gotta be on time and you gotta do your thing. And so it's good for us. It helps us lighten our load. And it's good for them so that, when they get out of school, they got a chance to get a job and can move on. So proud of that program. We do use, a lot of outside vendors for certain things, some of the higher tech stuff that we probably shouldn't be touching. So we'll hire that off, but I try to do my best to do as much as we possibly can in-house. It just saves a lot of money. And then, projects, these are all, gonna be spring, summer, not all, actually. Health department upgrade entry. That's almost done. And we got sidewalks, staircases at the PSB and mental health. That'll be in the spring. Concrete, HPO, upgrade air conditioning. That's already set to go. A new boiler in the HPO as well. That we were gonna do shortly. HPO, courthouse tennis work that. And, we got some windows to replace at the HPO. And then helping out with the, relocation and 911 backup center. And, whatever we end up doing with the COB. So,
To clarify for the board, the HPO work is state courts request.
yes,
Is it fair to say that some of these are the projects that you're carrying money from 25 into 26 or you're budgeting in 26?
we're carrying the bulk of them, yes.
Okay, so anything that wasn't completed in 25 that was budgeted for, you're going to move over into 26 and not have to you're just going to move the funds.
Correct.
So do you have anything brand new in 26 that has to include in the budget?
No, not really. We just have, these are the big ones on the list, so.
Because I know there was the Hardenberg paving and the parking lot and all of that, but that's not in place.
No.
And okay, that's kind of on hold still.
Okay, yeah, and I actually, to be honest with you, I hadn't heard of that project
Okay,
until just now. So I'll have to,
my words?
yes, your words.
Oh, because wasn't there going to be paving at
That didn't come out.
Okay.
That was,
at Dill Street?
It might have come out.
I mean, it's bad. It doesn't need to be.
Yeah, I think it was.
But that's the first I heard.
Gary Duckett, it was a Gary Duckett project.
Yeah, it came actually make up some conversation, but no, I don't.
It's not on the radar right now.
so that project was not completed because I do remember
Yeah.
last budget cycle, it got approved and in there.
Hasn't. I don't think Kathleen and I had a conversation regarding that. We did talk about the overhang in the parking lot as well.
That I understand has asbestos in it, that overhang.
Taking the bank thing down, yeah.
We spoke about that being part of a bigger project.
Mhm.
Okay.
So,
Didn't we allocate some ARPA money toward the repaving of that parking lot?
I'm not aware of that. Haley might.
I know at one time we were talking about some parking lots.
We definitely talked about it. I think you should,
I don't know if it got approved
I'm
or
not aware
not.
of that. ARPA funds have been set aside for the Highland building.
We didn't take any.
We were gonna maybe use a reserve, some of the things, as I was looking for, but somebody said we budgeted in 25, they weren't done.
So they'll move forward.
No, they won't.
Oh, they won't.
have to be rebudgeted again.
Okay, they'll go into the unspent and then they'll be put back into the budget. Again, if we can afford to do them. Okay, all right. I didn't know you were here. We wouldn't have put Kevin on the spot.
Well, you put me on.
Sorry, Kevin.
I wasn't aware of the paving stations. So.
I hadn't heard that one before. And then I just threw in a list of our biggest expenses. Gas and electric is, I'm told that it's going up about 10% this year. So we have that to look forward to. We've added some cleaning services with Clean Tech. That seems to be working out pretty good. I've had to do some yelling to get some things straightened out, but that's what you're gonna get with any of those companies. Stay on them and make sure that they're doing what they're being paid to do. That's what I do. You guys got any questions for me? What?
Is there anything, in terms of you said your staffing rate is just right and right now in terms of who you have?
Yeah.
When we're thinking about the county office building, is there a benefit to the more co-located things are versus being spread out? Does that necessarily mean you need more staff? Does it cost more to be spread out? Anything we should consider?
Because I mean, the furthest we have to go is the TSB. Everything's pretty close, so it's really not an issue, no.
Anybody else?
Mr. Chairman, if I could, on a side note, you had brought up the renovations to the courthouse by the tenant. I hadn't heard about that in a while. Is that proceeding to be near completion or?
No, we haven't started.
Talking about city court or the state court? I'm confused.
Well, this court system is obviously at the courthouse.
No.
We have the HPO with the city court locations, but they're all run by the unified court system.
Right, but I thought city court, the upgrade was going to be so expensive that kind of got put on hold. Is that true?
Yes, the court renovation is not moving forward right now. We do normal renovations, through the unified court system, and we'll actually be bringing a resolution pretty soon to, do this year's request that they had. That is funded by them.
By the, but for the state, that, yes.
These are maintenance requests.
so these are not court state requested then?
Well, no, this is all part of the courthouse because the maintenance of things they requested be done. There was some
Let me just correct you. The budget only includes things that we are required to do. They are not the specific unified court requests. We bring a resolution separate for that. So this would just be regular, anything that's plumbing, electrical, a lot of things we're required as a landlord to do.
Right, so this is just our
That's kind of what's
maintenance.
in the budget. Yeah.
This is just maintenance then.
This is the maintenance.
Kind of went to the side on
This
that.
isn't renovation. We're not talking about. We're
Troublemaker.
not talking about renovation.
It went everywhere.
Yeah, we're not talking renovation. We're talking maintenance requests.
Well, I know, but
There is a
said this
bigger-
was
there's a
state
bigger
court
request.
requested, it really isn't then. This is just maintenance.
No.
That's-
Sorry.
And the huge increase in electrical is kind of what the purpose of Siemens assessment might help with. Is that fair to say?
Amanda's negotiated a rate for the county. Siemens is savings.
By upgrading to more efficient
Yes.
energy use?
Exactly.
Okay.
We're gonna do an energy audit.
Yep,
So you come in and evaluate where we, are efficient for both, so we're not using high bulbs, maybe some areas or.
and then seek funding to upgrade.
There's grants,
Okay.
money out. There's no obligation for us to spend any money.
No, right.
Anybody else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I know. I had faith.
Good evening, everyone.
Oh. Like I'm in school. Hello there.
That's right. So we're gonna look over the budget overview. There's a few things that have come up in the past couple of years, especially as we've had changing staff and changing leadership. So I just thought I'd kind of address a few of those that come up from year to year. So I have a brief department overview, historical budget overview. That's really based on revenues because we've had a lot of conversations about those this year, and then a little bit over the budget request, which are really just the changes from year to year. Next slide, please. Thank you. Just a reminder, these are all the properties that we manage. So we have, you know, Emerson Park and the Sterling Nature Center that are well known. The Wasco Flats is at the other end of Wasco Lake. If you haven't been there, it's a beautiful site that we have access to there. And then we have a trail system throughout the county. And we're obviously sitting in the Agricultural Museum as well. This is our org chart. So we have 5 full-time staff. I realize that's near impossible to read from here. 21 part-time staff and 52 seasonal staff that we have throughout the department. Thank you. So I put this in because I do get questions about this often. So the Parks and Trails Department actually manages our own facilities. I think Kevin's got his hands full with the rest of the facilities around the county. So it may bear repeating, or if you weren't aware, we actually do all of the described that Kevin just went through, all the described services we actually manage for our own buildings. We have over 80,000 square feet of facilities that we actually manage throughout the county. And that includes all of our building systems, water, sewer conveyance, life safety systems, power systems, and then upgrades in both our new construction and historical facilities. So we have both ends of the spectrum there with brand new buildings and then older facilities like the Emerson Park Pavilion and the theater. So many of those take up obviously a significant amount of time, and all the maintenance programs are actually managed by, we have 2 full-time maintenance. We have a maintenance 4-person and a maintenance mechanic, and then a part-time maintenance person throughout the year. Slide, please.
Can I interrupt you, Doug? Can you repeat then?
Sorry.
Of your personnel, like, I know that embedded in that 21 part-time were people from the museum.
Correct.
So how about from your department, like to manage all of that? Who is doing that? Like, what are?
Oh, yeah, correct. So
That quickly, but I just.
yeah, so Amanda, can you back up to the personnel one? So out of the 21 part-time positions, the part-time positions that are, because every museum aide, if you work as a museum aide, because they're year-round, those are part-time positions.
Right.
So that is 16 of those positions. So the other part-time positions are on our building maintenance mechanic here, part-time position at the Sterling Nature Center, a part-time clerk that we have, and a part-time general laborer there. So I guess it's actually only those 4. The remainder would be part-time positions that we use as museum aides. Because we had a part-time cleaner, but that's been, we eliminated that from the budget. We defunded it this year and it's not in the budget for next year or 2. So that would have been the 5th. Is that a better? Yeah.
Well, yeah, no.
It's a good.
That's a different,
Mhm.
it's painting a different picture for me. Okay.
Yep. Thank you. I think we're on the Emerson Park one, 6 slide. Yeah, we're way out of it. Awesome. So according to Google Analytics, there's 350,000 visitors. It's the average over the past several years. That includes all of our day use in our programming. We run about 400 units of programming per year here. So all of those include all the events we do at the pavilion, the theater shows, the epic concert series, all the little league functions that happen both on the fields and within the park. Here at the museum, there's programming, and then there's a lot of public and private programming that goes on at the shelters and all the other various facilities that are here. So the most recent Google Analytics data we have is from 2022. That's where those numbers come from. That actually may have excluded the theater. We may have geofenced that out at that point. But that was based on basically cell phone data usage that the tourism board was actually doing for all of the attractions and facilities around the county at that point. Our ticket sales data, we do some counters. We have road counters that we do. We do survey both here at the Sterling Nature Center, have really borne out those average numbers from the last several years as we've tracked that data. So next slide, please. So in 2024, as we're all aware, we opened the Nature Center. The new facility highlights the ecology of the location. We host a lot of educational programming throughout the year. It's a 5,000 square foot facility on that property. I think it's important to remember there's 1,400 acres there. There's 2 miles of Lake Ontario lake shoreline that we own. And there's about 10 miles of trails in there. And all of the programs that we have are led by our naturalist, who is one of our full-time staff, who's also the museum director there. We have a lot of friends groups, and they all have different fundraising goals, but really the services they're providing are ones that we really couldn't produce the programming. We wouldn't be able to do the work that's been done here within this building and other facilities around the county without their support. And a lot of that's fundraising, it's promoting of the events. They run some of the events for us depending on where we are. And there's a lot of promotion that's also done through those, everything from park cleanup to fundraising. And then obviously there's a lot of grant applications that are going on from all of those organizations seek grants to support either programming or infrastructure upgrades that we do here within the park. So that's kind of a brief, just snapshot of all the friends groups that are currently associated with the department. Next slide, please. Hard to read. So I did this to look at revenue. We've had a lot of conversations on what the revenue is that's generated. So we tried to take a 10-year picture. That you obviously can see that it's very heavily influenced by the pandemic. So the line that states revenue, it's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th line down, kind of shows that's annualized revenue for the last 10 years, which ironically starts at, and those are basically our saleable items. So these are all the things that we can sell: parking, boat launch, rentals, and then some fees that we're gaining from the usage or from the vendor of the Emerson Park Pavilion. Those revenues have been ironically start and end at about $214,000 with a significant dip in the middle for 2020 and 21. Obviously, a big chunk of that was we didn't charge for parking those years. We had only half the revenue came in from the pavilion. A lot of those events didn't happen, obviously, during that time frame. So it's a relatively flat line. What is interesting to me, and I think that we've worked really hard on, is that if you take in the grants and donations, which is all totaled in the bottom line that's there, you can see kind of a steady growth. Obviously, 2020 reflects the grant we got for the state for the Nature Center. So there's a $3.8 million revenue line in that year. That's 100% from that grant that we used, to build the Nature Center. So as great as that is, that's obviously a little bit of an outlier from the rest of those. But generally speaking, that grant revenue has increased year over year. The 2018 number, which is $888,000, that was a combination of state grant and Emerson Foundation grant to do all the pathway work out on the island. But we've steadily kind of increased outside of outside of those large years when we did large projects that were grant funded. We're trending to be up over $150,000 a year in additional grant and donations that are coming in from various sources, including the Emerson Foundation, some of our friends groups and others. Next slide, please.
I got a question.
Yeah.
Parking at the top, from 15 to 19, you averaged between $75,000 and $80,000. But when we went back in 24, the highest we've been able to achieve is 35. That's over half the amount we were raising prior to COVID. Why is that?
So we don't charge for daily parking anymore. We only charge for events, which is one of the reasons that we sought, like the grants that we're doing right now. We have a 3-year agreement with the Emerson Foundation. And the goal of that was to supplant that loss of revenue by not charging every day. So obviously the events and the increase in the number of the concert series has gotten us back to about half of that original number. When we have used supporting grants to offset some of those and also to produce more events. So for example, we're in the beginning of a 3-year contract with the Emerson Foundation that actually escalates every year. That goes from $45,000 to $50,000 to $55,000 over 3 years. And those help us support and expand programming. which therefore in turn hopefully result in more parking revenue at these large events or just other programming that increases our traffic through the facility.
Thank you.
Yep.
Doug, you've got the pavilion fee here. Where is the thing for the merry-go-round?
So we have only recently sent them a contract. They have
Okay.
generated contractual revenue with us until that contract is executed. But we have one set up.
Process at this point.
Correct. And it is reflected in next year's budget.
Uh-huh.
Although it's a forecast because there's no contract in hand yet. But the effort is to start charging rent and escalate that over the next couple of years.
I guess you guys are in negotiation on it now?
Yep. But we'd like to book that revenue in for next year, obviously, to start building a reserve. Something that we have done historically that we would like to do also with that is, we've put in resolutions in the past to divert as much as 50% of the revenue coming in from those buildings to build the reserve for that specific facility. So if we have to do air handlers, roofs, things like that, that we have, a reserve built up for those. So that is, we would like to move that process that we've used in the past for the pavilion into the integration of the operations of the theater.
How long have these negotiations been going on, Doug?
Since 2023.
Doug, if you don't mind, I know when the theater are having their plays and whatnot, there's a considerable amount of parking. Is that parking included in the price of the ticket or do we not charge at all?
So the only parking we're charging for right now is when we do large park-wide events like the Great Race, like the 3rd of July, when we do the fireworks. Outside of that, there isn't a parking revenue coming in on like a Tuesday night. If there's a show at the theater, they are not doing that, which is why we've moved over that model from a parking-based fee to just a rental fee is what we're seeking from the theater as revenue from the facility.
I have a clarifying question. So the negotiation with the Playhouse since 2022, is that actually active negotiation or is this just getting paperwork done?
We have a contract that's been distributed to them now,
But how long ago?
just this last week.
Right. So the actual negotiations haven't started?
We've had a lot of conversations to get to a contract.
Okay, so you've sort of settled in on something.
Discussions began early spring.
Yes, because we did budget for more attorney work help so that we could get some of these contracts get going, right? So you're telling me that it happened, so that's good.
Yep.
That's what I want to hear.
Sure. It's really hard to read because that actually says the overall budget request is not 89% of the budget. It's 0.89% of the budget. If you can't see that decimal point from there, yes, I can't, but I do know what's on there. The contractual cost requested for this year is 1.7 million. Some historical numbers is, we're projected to be about 1.6 million this year, and we were 1.6 million in 2024. Obviously we have the same budget pressures that we've been discussing a lot, and the huge one for us is basically all of our commodities. So a huge number of our lines are things that we're buying in order to produce the events and the maintenance and everything that we have. And they've basically increased 150 to 200% since 2020. I can give you tons of examples. I'll give you two. If you bought a bridge before 2020, it was $800 a linear foot, and now it's $1,600 a linear foot. All of our building maintenance supplies have doubled, as many people are aware. If you bought anything at a grocery store or anywhere else, we are not immune to that, even with our purchasing. So, we have probably over the last 5 years doubled some of our building maintenance line used to be $19,000 and it's $35,000 now. And we're really not purchasing anything extra with this funds. We're really, unfortunately, getting a lot of the same things that are there. So that's a challenge for us. And like everybody else has mentioned, we've got aging infrastructure, and maintenance that continue to utilize all of these park improvements. The reason I say that is I think I've had some questions about what have we improved in the park with park improvements? And I think there's an assumption that maybe it's above the ground and really attractive and something really cool. And it's usually below the ground and not attractive and not really cool, but obviously required in order to keep running. So, a lot of the park improvements come from deferred maintenance. Repair and replacement is a huge amount of this. And there's currently really no capital plan, to do that all encompasses all of these facilities. So a lot of it unfortunately is reactionary. And the professional services we have is because everything we have requires a high volume of design and engineering, because those are required to really satisfy all of our permitting and to meet our purchasing requirements and to be able to do those through the proper process every year. Thank you. And then obviously I always give a shout out to all our partners because, you know, I don't budget these numbers. They don't really show up, but we can't do a lot of these things and we rely heavily on a lot of the other departments throughout the county. You know, and I can't stress it enough. We really wouldn't be able to do these things, you know, between the planning departments, they assist us with the grant writing and bringing in this tremendous amount of revenue. So we can really do the projects that are above the ground and more attractive that people actually see. Doug's crew over at the Doug number 2, that is, if you were confused, Doug number 2, from the Soil and Water Conservation District, you know, they do planning for us. They do execution of a lot of our water source protection programs, you know, site and trail improvements, always willing to help, you know, and you know, have the expertise to do that. The highway department does a tremendous amount of support for us and all of the buildings and grounds work and the trail work, and the sheriff's department, emergency management with all of our events and facilities. Obviously we can't run a lot of these events that we run without their support. And then, you know, many of the, you know, projects that we're into, they just wouldn't happen. They really wouldn't happen. So I say that only to say that cuts in those departments can trickle down to us occasionally. You know, I know Brian's had a hard time keeping a lot of staff there. We haven't been able to do some road maintenance work here and down at the Wasco Flats because he just doesn't have the personnel to bring people there. And quite frankly, we couldn't afford to do it with a private contractor. So we just wait, which is why, you know, sometimes we're holding stuff over from year to year to do that. You know, and Doug's crew is always great about fitting us in winter work whenever we can get a lot of those projects done. And we'll continue to leverage those relationships as much as possible.
Any questions?
Oh,
Thank you.
so the carpet looks great.
Yeah,
Good choice.
worked all weekend on that. No,
Those look really nice.
I didn't do that. They're very happy with it. And it'll be great for maintenance long term. Yeah.
Yeah, I just noticed. I'm like, I thought we were getting new carpet. Oh, wait.
It's there.
Yeah. Do you have an idea of what to anticipate for grants next year? Are you thinking it's gonna be around 200,000 or like it is this year?
We've averaged that. Like what I know is coming in for next year are the ongoing contracts that we have. So like I mentioned, I think it's $50,000 will be the programming support from the Emerson Foundation next year. We'd love to get the BRICS grant and that number will jump up to $1.2 million, you know, so some of that is what we're in process for right now. And then we do whatever arrives that we think we can fit into. Right now, we're really focused on trying to support the Friends efforts and writing grants for the playground process. That's what the BRICS grant was. I really can't predict what's going to be available to us.
Did you just put in that northern border or something?
Put in the Northern Border Regional Grant again, yep, for the bridge replacement on the island, you know, so that would be a $2 million project for which we would really only be in for about $400,000. So that's another one. So there's always a number of those in process. But there's smaller ones that we've been very successful at too. And some of them have been brought in by the Friends. The Friends of the Sterling Nature Center just did one for $65,000 for programming, youth programming support up there from Constellation Energy that they just received. So it's not only our efforts, and not only our efforts through the planning department, but our Friends groups are constantly developing that too, to support new or existing programming.
And then have we ever looked into using one of those apps for the parking? You know, you can pay. The only reason I ask is because when I go to the dog park and you have to come back and pay and go back, and I do it 99% of the time, you know? So I imagine there's quite a few people that forget to go back over and pay and go back.
It would only be like on event days, because on any day when there isn't a large all-encompassing event going on, there isn't a parking charge to use the park. It would only be on event days, but we actually have just finished integration of a wireless charging system, a credit card charging system, so that we can actually use handheld devices anywhere to charge with a credit card. So we're doing the integration of that. So when we can actually put folks remotely in different parts of the park or at the Sterling Nature Center if we decided to.
Yeah. Those apps are handy. You have your information in, you just press a button where you are and then you pay.
Not many of them are integrated with Civic Plus and Civic Rec that we're currently using.
Oh, okay.
Saying it's going to be, but we'll use it if it becomes available to us as far as what the system we currently have in place, but yeah.
So if I could, so historically, we used to charge $2
Mm-hmm.
to go into the park, pre-pandemic. And it was very upsetting to people because there was nothing new happening at the park. And in fact, a lot of it was in disrepair. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of people were choosing not to go to the park and they were really upset that you had to pay, but you can go to Hoops Park or go somewhere else and walk. And it's free. So, you know, the Parks Commission at the time, we were trying to say, and also the Emerson Foundation was like, the intention of gifting the park to the county was so that it's free and usable by everybody. So then we stopped charging for daily parking. And the idea, the philosophy behind that is until we have something to show, like a new upgrade, like a new destination playground or new boat slips, that new concert venue, something that people can get out of it, then, you know, we want to like, I guess, tread carefully on just throwing out new fees for just somebody to walk in that park. I think that's not appropriate, right? But we're almost there. We're getting there. The Friends are doing it, you know, they're really working on our behalf to do that. They're doing the work that the county can't do, like that we should do, but we don't do. So I think once we start to improve the park and you have something to show for it, then, you know, then we should certainly, somebody's going to get something out of it. You would pay to go into the park. But right now it's like, it's, you know, beautiful and it's lakeside and that everything's taken care of and it's a wonderful place, but it's a park. It's just grass.
And the two areas that I highlighted in there, and I do have, if you want to see them, the two areas that we talked extensively about last year and do every year are park improvements, as I kind of describe what those are, in professional services. Those are the only two buckets where we've really vary the budget from year to year, and it's based on specific projects that we want to get completed. I do have those if you want to look at them. I mean, most of them, all of the ones from the list last year, except for one, were not, they were defunded during the budget process. So a lot of those we've seen before, and I've tried to include those before. And if it's something we have time and want to look at, I'm happy to do that.
What projects do you have left to do though? 'Cause there's still.
No, I remember we made you do a priority listing, right?
Right.
Yeah, but there was still money in your budget right now.
Yeah, there are funds both in professional services right now, and our park improvements. The professional services are all going to go to previously approved engineering projects that we're currently just waiting on agreements from the organizations for, and
Thank you.
or we just haven't expended the funds and we're already in process with those.
Thank you.
Yep, these are so this is the list that we looked at last year. The column on the left shows like last year's requests as far as what the original 25 request is on the left. Man. Yep.
Thank you.
Good job. You good? So this is the list that we put, the list on the left, you know, from everything from electronic traffic gates, to island dredging, all of those projects. At last year's meeting, I was asked to put them on a priority. So that's the next column. You see where they're numbered 1 through 6. We started out with refits for the sewer station and then curb removal, entrance signs, conservation slab repair, the dredging. So those were our orders. As you can see, this is what was funded and what was not funded for last year. So the only one of the park improvements that was funded was sewer station refit. And down below, the only one in professional services that we did were fireworks funding, which obviously we are committed to doing as much as we can every year. Sewer station PM contracts, and the pavilion HVAC control system replacement, which is currently completing design right now. So that's where we were. So really the 1, 2, and 3 under park improvements is what we rolled to this year, to kind of move those forward. The park offices, the sewer station refit that we got a contract for is actually probably going to end up being stolen by another sewer. What am I trying to say? Sewer we have a large sewer station down in the park that'll probably have to be resealed. It was done several years ago and will have to be, it'll just have to be maintained. It's just a regular maintenance sewer and we don't have a number for. That's I'm really happy with. So I took their estimate and raised it some because it never comes back cheaper. Always comes back more. But that's the list that we started out with last year. So that's what rolled into the budget numbers that you'll see in both of those lines. In that park improvements line, there's a budget number is 391,000, and then the professional services line, it's 150. And that's where those numbers are derived from. As I said, those are the ones that really move from year to year based on projects.
When somebody rents the pavilion, obviously there's a fee involved. But if they use your catering staff, are they still required to use the provided one for the
For the building?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one, the caterer actually takes the reservation and actually does the catering job too. There's only a single provider for that building.
Single thing?
Correct. And they're the one that we charge rent to.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else? Thank you.
You.
And I guess we're gonna go to number two.
Number two, here we are, right? Last presentation. It's always tough to be the last, but we'll be all right.
You started the number two thing. That was not me.
It's the one way to tell us apart when we're in all these meetings together and we sit next to each other. So it's hard sometimes. People figure out which one we're talking to. But first, I want to thank you guys for having us, giving us the opportunity to present. It's been a while since I've been able to present to the legislature on the district and who we are. Some people might still question who we are and why we're so connected with the county and all the departments. So thanks for the opportunity. So with that, we'll get into it. Soil and Water Conservation District started after the Dust Bowl, 1940. Federal legislation came around, and here in Cayuga County, a resolution was passed by the Board of Supervisors on August 8th, 1944, to create a Soil and Water Conservation District. So that's where it all started back in the day. And then, right, you can go to the next one. And then as we move on, we developed over the years into a staff of about 17 people, 16 full-timers, one seasonal staff at the moment, but we're governed by a board of directors too, of which we have, if we look up there, there's a Farm Bureau, and this is all designated in law, in New York State law. Chapter 9B is where a lot of our boundaries are set. So it says we can have a board of directors of 7 members, one of which is a Farm Bureau representative because we work closely with the ag community here. And then we have 3 members at large, 2 representatives of the legislature, of which the current ones are Mark and Tom. And then we have a member of the Grange. It's not as popular as it was maybe back in the day, but it was set back in law in the 40s. And there's still Grange members, and they actually have a seat where they appoint an individual, send us a letter that we get approved here at the legislature, and then they're represented. So who we are and what we do a lot of different stuff that maybe isn't captured by some of what the other departments do. But primarily, we're a technical service agency, technical service provider. People call us for all things natural resource concerns. We do the planning, implementation, and in that, and we do a lot of fund seeking to assist a lot of the departments, a lot of the residents of Cayuga County. So we're a hands-on group, but with that technical expertise comes, requests to be the intermediary with a lot of federal or state agencies. When you talk about erosion and drainage and flooding, not a lot of people have that kind of skill set anymore. So when we have to interact with the USDA or New York State DEC or the Army Corps of Engineers and permitting agencies, it could be a lot if you're not doing it all the time. And then also we're asked to serve on a lot of local committees. So we generally have a seat at the table to talk about our side of what we do or to maybe explain some things. But with that comes educational training opportunities, both for landowners, but also for other staff, for anybody that's looking for training, whether it's stormwater training or something as simple as soil health as well with the ag community. And then we do a lot of times you guys get calls or interact with me on aquatic invasive species. So the weed harvesting boats that are out there on Cayuga Lake, Owasco Lake, Little Swords Bay, Lake Como. So we also handle that program. So when we talk about doing different projects and implementing projects and the work we do when we plan and implement, this is what we're looking at. So just in the last 6 years, and obviously we're not through 2025, this is just what we've been able to tabulate. I stuck to just the municipal type of projects because you heard Doug just recently talk about how we partner together. And we do that with a lot of different departments, as you see there. You'll see the Sheriff's Department, Parks and Trails, Highway Department. Many of you heard me last year talk about how we work close with the Highway Department. And if we can get some funding to help offset some of, let's say, Brian's projects, we also come and bring money to the table to get some stuff done. Cayuga County just in general with some of the weed harvesting, the planning department, and a lot of different projects that we can fill in the gaps on, and then the town highway. So our service area is from Sterling and all the way down to Genoa and the southern border, and then on either side. So we're all over the county. And many times people look at us as either we do agricultural type of projects or we do non-agricultural type of projects. In that particular slide, it was strictly non-agricultural projects, stormwater management, drainage, erosion control, and stuff like that. So what I'll focus on a little bit is when we think about projects, I know this slide is kind of intentionally meant to be confusing or create that kind of feeling, because that's what goes through our brain when somebody calls and we pick up the phone and they have a problem, right? Where do we start? How much is it going to cost? Where are we? What watershed is it in? All of those questions have to be answered before something actually gets completed. So we work through that phase, with the hardest one being, how is this going to be funded? Because anytime anybody calls and you walk out there and a stream is eroding and it's 10 feet high and 10 feet deep into the bank, and that's a big problem. Maybe it's encroaching on their septic system. A landowner may not have $200,000 to have that fixed. So where do we kind of begin? So we kick into gear and just, all right, what funding sources are available? Maybe we reach out to the state. So the next slide will show us maybe some of the grants that we've been able to bring in. The slides are limited. We want to be able to read them. So I can't put all the projects and all the grants that we've recently got on there, but it gives you an idea. There's some stream bank ones, some fire lane drainage improvements. There's some Cayuga County total ones. There's some specific lake funded ones, but we've been very successful about getting grant funding into the county to help, whether it's other departments or just the residents of the county that have issues. And I don't know.
Is this over a number of years, Doug?
That's over a number of years. Correct. Yep. There's the two recent ones, the Cayuga Lake Shoreline Stabilization and the Cayuga County Seneca River Watershed Culverts. Those are just this year. They were just recently announced. They were actually in my last report. So yeah, a $400,000 one and a $30,554. Now, when we talk about grants, our grants are for implementation. I don't know how a lot of the other department grants, so when Doug talks about grants or when Denise earlier was talking about grants, I don't know how they're structured. I know our grants are structured to a point where the DEC or Ag and Markets want to see projects on the ground. So we don't have a lot of opportunity to build in staff costs. And that's where we'll get to it later on. Our appropriation comes in handy. And I have some graphs in there to break some of that down. But to put it in example, that $400,000 grant, let's see, I made a note, that $400,000 grant that we just got, there might be $20,000 for the staff time in it, and that's over 5 years. So when you look at, $20,000 over 5 years, it's not really a lot each year. You need 5 grants to take care of it. And when we talk about some of the ag grants, I can give you even more shocking numbers, but the state specifically looks for implementation. These are implementation grants. There's planning grants available that we've tried for, and we just unfortunately never seem to get them funded. So they're there. They're just not as attractive to the funders. So we do what we can, and our goal is to protect the soil and water resources and natural resources of the county. So we take that funding and put it on the ground and help out the local residents, whether they're fire lane and lakeshore owners or whether they're agricultural producers. So what does that look like? Some of us, we see a lot of words and we see some numbers, but what does it actually look like? So I want to throw some slides in here too, showing what we encounter on a regular basis. So the top one is a typical stream bank stabilization project. Phone call comes in, I lost a lot of bank, maybe there's some trees jammed up, and that bank, there's nobody standing in it, but it's probably 8 foot high. And that When that erodes, all of that sediment washes down into the lake. So when people talk about water quality and nutrient loading to the lakes via streams, that's where it comes from. So imagine a bunch of stream bank that can grow trees and everything else. That soil now lands in the stream and ends up in Cayuga Lake, Wasco Lake, Canals Lake, the river, in many places. So we'll go in, work with the landowner, get some funding, and then turn it into the project on the right. We stabilize the bank, we, put some fabric down, put some new soil back in, plant some trees, create that canopy back to shade the stream. And that bank is now protected from washing nutrients down into the lake. But when we talk about the towns, the county highway, how do we work with them? Oftentimes you get road ditches, like the lower picture on the left, that just starts down cutting. It doesn't look like much. Some ditches are worse than others, but it starts hardly noticeable, gets bigger after each significant rain event. And then all of that material also washes down into one of the lakes. So we'll work with the towns, go in. Oftentimes we have our own equipment. We do have our own equipment. Oftentimes the town will contract with us to come in. We utilize the grant funds and stabilize the ditch like you see on the right. Rock is now in there. When these significant rains come, they hit the rock, it breaks up the energy, kind of filters the water a little bit. All that sediment stays in the rock and clean water is entering the lake. So it helps keep those nutrients out of the lake. So just a couple of examples. There's a host of examples. I could have done 20 slides just on that, but that's the non-ag stuff. But we also do a lot with the ag community. Cayuga County, obviously being the #1 county in the state. It's pretty cool to have that. We're very lucky. We have some really good farmers in this county, very at the top of their game nationally and statewide. So we also do a lot of work with the agricultural producers. And in that case, that's through our AIM program, our Ag Environment Management program. We like to say that it's, farmers working with their district, because the soil, as well as the water, the air, the farm viability, that's all important. So when we go out there, it's a voluntary program. So it's voluntary conservation that the landowners are reaching out, and it's locally led right here, each soil and water district in each county. That's why we cover the whole county, not just one watershed. Go out and work with the farmers that are interested in working with us. We go out and we call it a 5-tier process. We find out everything we can about that farm. That's why it's confidential. People don't like to share their information, no matter what. They're all private businesses. We like to think of them as farmers out there, but they're all individual businesses. So we start with simple questionnaires and we move on to site visits, farm planning, more in-depth stuff. Then we get into a plan, which is the third phase. And then it's like, okay, we got a good plan. Let's go find some money to implement the plan, because the plan's only as good as if it gets implemented or not. You can't just keep making plans, putting them on a shelf and never doing anything with it. It doesn't really solve any problems. So then if we actually finish that plan, get some funding, maybe it's private funding. The farmer might do it themselves if it's a good enough plan and they have the funding, but sometimes they need some help. So we can go after cost share programs if they have a plan. So once we get that plan, now we can apply for other grants. And we've been pretty successful with those too. Get the project implemented, go back, check it out to make sure it's working. If it's not working, why isn't it working? Maybe we go from there, because we want to keep any nutrients in their fields to grow the crops that help make the county the best. So with those opportunities, as we go on here with those, you can see I put a Wasco Lake because a lot of times Wasco Lake is a big focus. It's a drinking water source for a lot of the residents in the county, obviously Auburn. And one thing that's a kind of a pet peeve for us is if we go places in here, nobody's doing anything in the watershed to protect the lake. Well, I wanted to put this slide up there saying we have 14 million. Now, granted, this is from 1998 to 2024, and I can update it a little bit, but through the AIM program, we created a little flyer, the picture on the left, updating how are we working with the farms to protect water quality. So through our AIM program, it's hard to read up here now, but there's 83% of the farms in Wasco Lake watershed are working with our program. So it could be in the step 1 and 2 stage. It could be a planning stage. It could have been implementation. But over the years, we brought in $14 million to try to protect, a Wasco Lake. And that's what we try to do. We try to meet with people, find out what their needs are. And those are just some of the practices that we put in there. We have a whole catalog of hundreds of practices that we could choose from. And what I tell everybody, going to the farms isn't like going to a vending machine. You don't just put $10,000 in, hit a button and get a plan out for that farm. You got to you got to build a relationship with the operation and the owners and find out what their needs are and really put some time into each location, because they're all different. And when you got just one watershed like a Wasco there, it takes some time to get through them all. There's 180 farms or so. But that's just one lake, but we also work collaboratively with a lot of other districts. So let's look at Cayuga Lake, a lot bigger, huge watershed, a lot of, there's a lot of farms there as well. And we'll work with other soil and water conservation districts too. So I wanted to put a comparison in there for a lake like Cayuga Lake, where we can work with Cayuga and Cortland and Schuyler and Seneca and Tompkins. And we all work together now through Eastern Finger Lakes coalition, but over the years, collectively, we've been able to bring $33 million. And remember, all this water flows north from, the southern end of Cayuga Lake comes our way to go out towards the river. So we get to treat it all on the way out. So collectively, that's how we work to bring money to protect water quality for the lake too. And once again, for those that are into pictures, this is what it looked like. So the top picture is heavy use area, of what we call a barnyard. We have to have fancy terms for them, but we'll just call it a barnyard that gets popped up. There's a lot of manure in there. It's hard to manage, hard to maintain. We can go in there, and that picture might not be the best because it's an early spring picture afterwards, but that's a hardened surface now, easier to clean. It's not getting beat up, and the potential for runoff is down. And something simple like an erosion control system at the bottom. A lot of times in the springtime of the year, you get a heavy rain event, you see soil moving from the field, these little rills and gullies that go down through the fields. We try to work, those landowners don't want that ending up in the ditch. That's their topsoil. That's what's going to grow their corn, their beans, their grass. So we'll go in, try to work with the landowners voluntarily, and then we turn into the slide on the right? The grass waterway / wascob. It's all vegetated, taken care of. The water is no longer just sheet flowing across and eroding the soil. So we try and take care of that. But when we talk about outreach, these are all the groups that we work with. You'll see some county ones in there, the Health Consortium, the Local Emergency Planning Committee, Highway Superintendents, state committees we serve on with the conservation districts, Soil Health Working Group, and then just local ones, the 9-element plan implementation committees for Skinny Atlas and Owasco Lake. It's great to have a lot of fresh water surrounding Cayuga County, right? With the #1 freshwater shoreline in New York State. So a lot of people want to protect it. So with our specific knowledge and expertise, we serve on a lot of committees, and I'm glad that we do actually, because it helps get our strengths and our input out there. But we're trying to prevent and protect against those harmful algal blooms. That's the slide that gets used a lot. Nobody wants to see that. So all those committees are working towards it. And then this year we had the AIM Awards. There's tours. I encourage everybody when we do any of these award ceremonies and any type of bus tours or work with our partners in the farming community, Farm Bureaus, Partners for Healthy Watersheds, Northeast Dairy Producers, Extension. When we start to put these together, please come and attend them. We do soil health seminars for the farmers. They're learning too. They want to hear what the latest, greatest practices are, how to handle things. Maybe it's how to adjust rates, cover crop stuff. They're always in learning mode as well. So we're out there to try and teach them what we hear and what we're seeing good results from. And then right down to stormwater training. We'll invite the highway departments to come out and take the 4-hour erosion and sediment control class that we teach on behalf of the DEC. So highway departments come out and come take our training. I don't even charge. I don't charge the towns. I don't charge any county employees if they want to come out and learn. Like the planning department wanted to come out and learn about the erosion and sediment control practices. Come on, the more that understand it and know it, the better, right? So we want all these practices being implemented. So with a little bit of that about who we are and give you a little backstory. I mean, I could have done 100 slides on that, but tried to limit it. But now we can get into, all right, the district, you guys are awesome about providing an appropriation to us. Appropriation is the biggest foundation we have. That's why you guys will take the front and center on my slide all the time, right? Without your appropriation, the rest of all the work that we do really doesn't get done. So other sources that we use your funding to leverage, the Eastern Finger Lakes Coalition, because of the support that we have and all the work that we do in the community, the state recognized that, and now we're part of an 11 district coalition. We get money from the Finger Lakes Lake Ontario Watershed Protection Agency. We do smaller projects with AULA and the Management Council to get projects on the ground. We tap into the grant funds, whether it's through Ag and Markets, the WQIP program, USDA funding opportunities, federal opportunities that we find, and then the AIM program. we're also unique in a way where we're able to go out and earn our own income. So if another county needs some help doing, some of their stormwater work, we can certainly go do it. When we get a grant to stabilize road ditches, we can go out and do the work ourselves, charge the grant, and that keeps some of our programs going. So we kind of juggle all of that to, do the things that everybody else does, meet payroll, pay your bills, keep the lights on, get your copier going. So here's what it looks like over the years for our appropriation. I thought I'd give a historical perspective of where we are. The orange line represents the request that we put in for this year. So you can see we just kind of come and go, but the line across the middle, the red line is pretty much the trend line. We're fairly flat and consistent over the last 16 years, and but we take it's a $730,000 this year, but that $730,000 gets us to our $8 million overall budget that we could show you here. Right, so what we asked for, so this past year we got 730. For the upcoming 2026 budget, we did ask for a slight increase of $35,000, and that was exclusively just to cover the cost of health insurance for our staff. Nothing to do with any of the other costs that we've all heard are going up, whether it's the electric bills or just gas and general cost of doing business operational expenses. So the 35 increase is just to keep our trained and good employees, just to more or less keep ourselves flat. And, we can make that up through maybe some other opportunities. So and the other losses of things that come in. So I want to throw this slide in because it talks about how your appropriation really impacts us. So the pie graph on the left is how we spend the appropriation. So the 730 that we get from the county, we break it down. The big blue one for 451,000 and change is just salaries. And like I say, we have 17 people. Obviously, all 17 aren't getting paid with 730,000. So we have to make that difference up. And then the orange is the health insurance costs and insurance costs. So the majority of our funding that you see just goes towards our people and investing in our staff, and then allowing them the free rein to go out and get the other grants and get the other fund. And then the rest is just your typical stuff for our boats, like parts and fuel to run the ABC boats, which is a program in our contract to do for the county. And then just a little bit for office supplies and keeping the lights on and paying bills. So when you break the math out to our overall budget of 2025 that we had for this year of 8.9 million, that pie chart on the left, which it doesn't look like a lot on the right, but it's actually the major foundation and supporting block of the rest of our budget. But that fits into that little orange pie slice of our overall budget. So for every dollar, so you give us 730, if we turn it into 8 million, 9 million, a couple of years ago, it was 10 million. Next year, maybe it's another 5 or 6. That's what we bring into the community with the other grants. So you can see the New York State source is the biggest funded one because we get a lot of state grant funding. And unfortunately, as I mentioned before, they want to see that money go onto the ground in projects to protect the resources because that's what the grants are for. So if we get there was one grant we got, it was a $5 million grant. Sounds like a lot of money. It's pretty impressive. Goes to covers and flares to keep the methane out of the air, keeps water out of the manure. And out of that grant, we got $60,000 and it was a 5-year grant. So it sounds like a lot.
For administration, you mean?
Yeah, for administration staff time.
Yes.
Right. So it helps cover that, that gap of, okay, 730 to, our other payroll expenses are probably with everything factored in $1.5 million. So that doesn't even cover half of our staff. So that 50,000 can go towards the rest of the staff. You do it. So we need about 7 of those grants per year per person if that was the case. But I think we do a lot of good work. That's $9 million coming into the county that, some of it's going to go to highway. Some of it can offset some of the costs possibly for the parks or the sheriffs. Some of it's going to go towards those local contractors that come in to do this work, to buy gas, buy lunch, buy all the other stuff here. So I know we definitely appreciate the support of the county. It is our biggest, the foundation for our program. So, we are number one ag county. We want to keep it that way with the support. We like to think that we have a little bit of a hand in keeping them viable with, I mean, that $5 million grant that's going to put covers and flares on, that could save that farm $5 million, and they could put that towards innovation, towards, maybe improving their fields to grow better crops or contract with maybe running some other grounds. So we were close with the other municipalities, private landowners. That's the interesting thing. We don't have any right of ways, and we can work with other county soil and water conservation districts. We can work with the municipalities. We can go on private land and work with private landowners. Wherever there's an issue to protect our water quality and natural resources, we can go in and work with them. So, and then in other ways, we actually saved the county money. Last year, I presented at the budget that over the last 5 years, we saved the county highway department alone almost $1 million. And that's because we show up, Brian has a problem, maybe a stream shoulder blew out or a stream blew out one of his road shoulders. We can go in and go, we have a grant for that. Let us help. And if it's $500,000, like one project was, we can go into $500,000 and Brian can now go pave $500,000 worth of road somewhere else because we came and said, look, what do you need? Or if he had culverts to replace or have projects in the future that also meet the goals that we have with protecting water quality, we can work close together and just put a grant in on his behalf and get that project done. So we can actually be a resource to save the county money. And like I said, we try and give you guys a positive return and like to think of ourselves as a good investment for the county. So I think that's all I got. So be glad for any questions.
Questions from Mr. Pierce?
I have a question. You brought up the Eastern Finger Lakes Coalition. Is that where you got those latest round of grants from?
So the Eastern Finger Lakes Coalition, the DEC and Ag Markets came to our district and asked us if we wanted to participate or coordinate or be the lead in coordinating 11 soil and water conservation districts from across the Eastern Finger Lakes, which is from Chemung County, imagine all the way up to Onondaga County. So we did that. And with that, we had worked together collectively on a smaller project for cover crops, the Eastern Finger Lakes Cover Crop Initiative. It was a couple of years worth of funding, worked together. State came to us and said, what can we do to get more funding into the Finger Lakes to protect water quality? And we said capacity, because we're short-staffed. Phone calls come in, we can't get to everybody all the time that's needed. So they came to the table and said, okay, what do we need to do? So they got money in the EPF, the Environmental Protection Fund, to fund the Eastern Finger Lakes Coalition for 5 years for $1.2 million to go towards staff. So it works to be about $50,000 or so per district. Still not enough for a whole staff person. And we said, okay, well, that's great. But then what about all the practices? So then they came to the table with $41 million over the next 5 years to do practices only. So
Projects, do you mean?
projects to go in and put things on the ground and work with municipalities to do roads and stormwater stuff, or to do, work with farmers to get practices out in the fields to protect water quality.
But that's over 11 counties, correct?
That's over 11 counties. Yep. So that's not coming to me, it's coming through me, right? So I get that check. It looks impressive. It's awesome, right? And then I have to break it up and send it, the other districts are going to wait for their money. So it's broken out, but it's dedicated funding coming to the county to get projects on the ground. So we're still going to apply for grants because that's what they're looking for. And they said, don't just rest on this money. There's 19.5 million for the climate resilient farming program, which we tap into. There's 18.5 million in the Agna Point Source round 31. So that's $38 million or so that's available only to soil and water conservation districts. So they're expecting us to also apply for grants. And that's our intention. So it's good. It's dedicated funding. We can use it in the Cayuga Lake watershed, Owasco Lake watershed, Skinny Lake watershed, and Seneca River watershed.
As the lead, did you hire the person that would work with all of the coordinating districts?
Correct. So one of our 17 staff members,
Right.
Carrie McElroy, she's our watershed, the Eastern Finger Lakes watershed coordinator, or coalition coordinator.
And you were going to try to fund agricultural engineers because there's
We're working on a contract with an engineering company right now to help get
All the-
their staff trained. Yep, the 11 districts help. So when we look at that $6 million, there's a pot of money that came right off the top that didn't even make, that's why if you do the math, it's like, well, divided by 11, you should get, $1 million each. Now, it doesn't work that way because we took a bunch off the top to address some of the needs. There's survey equipment that might be needed, AutoCAD type of programs to be able to do the planning that we're going to need to do. So we have an engineer that we're working with through contract right now, finalizing some of those details. That's going to work to train the staff to work with us out in the field to get these projects on the ground, because there's only a handful of agricultural based engineers across the whole state. So when you're talking millions and millions of dollars in projects and it goes down to 5 people, there's only so much time a day that could be the delays, other than what we're used to hearing, parts delays and equipment delays and material delays and all that. This is delays because somebody has to review it, calculate it, stamp it, get the plans to us, move on to the next one. So
I guess what I think is kind of amazing about this is that it's great and it's all coming, and you guys knock it out of the park all the time. You're fantastic. And we're on a lot of boards together and everything. I just find it amazing that they don't take into consideration the staff time. We were not funding you to the extent to which we fund you. What would happen? We wouldn't get any of that grant money. But we can't, what if we were in a terrible predicament and we could no longer fund you or fund you to a high degree? So has fate built that in? Is that the conversations you're having with them? Or, there are other counties that are not funded to this degree at all. I don't know how they manage.
they have 1 or 2 people.
Right, that's what I mean. I don't know how they're managing,
Right, and they farm everything out. They don't have people to help the other county departments, let's say, or they have 1 or 2 people get a grant, it's great, and then they just do very minimal stuff.
That's what I was wondering, if it's if you're getting equal grants across and they don't have the staff, then they're just having to pay for this contracting service.
Yeah, the fact that we have the staff that we have and the state has the funding available that they have, the two work well together. We do, we're fortunate because of the support for here to bring that funding.
Yeah.
And if that'd be one of the consequences, we would either have to, go find funding somewhere else, right? And maybe we work out of county or do something. Obviously, that'd be a conversation to have, or we just have to scale back and then not bring the funding into this county that, it goes towards, natural resources.
And 10 years ago, what was your staffing like? Or when I first came on?
There were a couple that we were going through a lot of turnover
Okay,
at that point.
okay.
So it's hard to tell. It depends. If it's in the early part of the year, we might have had 15 people.
Okay.
If it was a different time of the year, it'd be 13 and then we get back up to 15 or 16.
I just didn't know if it's grown, you know what I mean? I didn't know if you had 7 and now you have 15 now.
Oh, yeah,
So I
no.
remember what you had before, but I'm
Yeah.
just trying to get a picture in my head.
Definitely wasn't anything like that. We've always had, we have 3 open desks in our office right now.
Okay.
So the offices, around the perimeter of our office have always been full. And so.
I always find it
Pretty consistent.
interesting. I'm sorry to cut you off.
No.
I always find it interesting that people think you are a department of the county. Well, anything that has Cayuga County in front of it, everyone thinks they're a department. So they're they are so confused by that. And you are a district and you're a separate entity. You have state benefits. You have a lot of things that are attractive as an employer. He takes all of our watershed people. They all run it because you have we can't compete, and because you can offer all of those state benefits and everything, and you're a good place to work. So it is it is a totally different entity, but you obviously do a lot of work for the county as well as help our departments. Some people are confused by that.
And we appreciate it a lot too, when we do work for the county. A lot of other county departments look at us as, another department really there to help them.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Which we always appreciated.
No, you have great relationship.
Look, I do appreciate the partnership. I have a clarifying question. You stated you had 3 open desks. You didn't mean you had 3 open positions.
Not positions, no, just at one point, those were all full. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no,
I just want to clarify that.
no, I'm good staff wise,
Any other questions for Doug?
Are you easier to work for than Doug number 1?
I don't know. I haven't taken any physical.
It's a solid question. I haven't had any of my staff go to Doug's team, just.
Thank you, Doug.
Same benefits.
Thank you.
Thanks, Doug.
And thank you, everybody, for giving me this chance.
Thank you.
And if you ever have any questions, you see me every month, but feel free to reach out. I'd be glad to take you around.
This board's gonna turn to executive
Oh, I
session,
guess we are.
to discuss the collective negotiations pursuant to Article 14 of the Civil Service Law.
Make a motion? Oh,
So,
I'll make a motion?
Yes, I will. At this time, I'm also going to invite our county attorneys, Lynn and Shirley. Can I get a motion to enter into executive session? Let's stay in this room. There may be no business conducted after this.
Can I get a motion? Okay.
Motion to go
Thank you.
into executive session.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, let's executive session.
On one.
I think she has to use the bathroom.